On September 19, 2025, the usually quiet Baltic skies became the stage for a major international incident that would send shockwaves through Europe and beyond. What began as an ordinary day over Estonia quickly escalated into a tense standoff as the world watched with bated breath. Without warning, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets crossed into Estonian airspace, a clear violation of the sovereignty of a NATO member state. The incursion occurred near the remote island of Vaindloo, a strategic outpost in the Baltic Sea, and immediately triggered alarm bells in Tallinn and across NATO headquarters. These jets didn't just pass through, they lingered for a full 12 minutes, circling and loitering in a manner that left no doubt this was far more than a navigational error. Their presence was deliberate, calculated, and impossible to ignore. The Russian pilots flew with their transponders switched off, making them invisible to civilian air traffic control. They filed no flight plan, and when Estonian authorities attempted to make radio contact, their calls were met with silence. Every standard protocol was ignored, heightening the sense of danger and unpredictability. This was no accident. It was a deliberate breach of international law and a direct challenge to NATO's collective security. Military officials quickly gathered to assess the situation, aware that any miscalculation could have far-reaching consequences. The timing of the incursion was especially provocative, coming at a moment when tensions in the region were already running high due to the ongoing war in Ukraine. With Russian forces engaged in fierce battles just across the border, every move was being closely watched by the international community. For Estonia, a small nation sharing a long and often tense border with Russia, such aggressive maneuvers are not just political statements, they are existential threats. The memory of past occupations lingers, making every violation deeply personal for many Estonians. The incident unfolded over the Gulf of Finland, a vital and crowded waterway that serves as a gateway between Russia and the West. Control of this region has long been a point of contention, with both military and economic implications for the countries that border it. By sending its fighter jets so brazenly into Estonian airspace, Russia was sending a clear message. It is willing to disrupt, intimidate, and project its military power whenever it chooses, regardless of international norms or the risk of escalation. For ordinary Estonians, the roar of Russian jets overhead is a chilling reminder of their country's vulnerable position on the front lines of East-West tensions. Even as members of NATO, the threat feels immediate and real, fueling anxiety and resolve in equal measure. The message from Moscow was unmistakable. Russia's military reach is vast, and its willingness to challenge the rules-based order remains a constant threat to its neighbors and the world at large. Estonia's response was swift and resolute, reflecting the seriousness with which the government viewed the incursion. Within hours of the violation, top officials convened in Tallinn, determined to send a clear message to Moscow and the international community that such actions would not go unanswered. The Estonian government immediately summoned Russia's charge d'affaires, demanding a formal explanation for the airspace breach. In a strongly worded statement, officials condemned the violation as a brazen provocation, underscoring the gravity of the incident and the potential risks it posed to regional stability. Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna addressed the press, calling the event an unprecedented act in recent years. He emphasized that the incursion was not accidental, but a deliberate move by Russia, designed to test Estonia's resolve and send a message to its allies. This marked the 4th Russian airspace violation in Estonia that year alone. However, it was the first time that 3 advanced fighter jets had crossed into Estonian territory simultaneously, raising the stakes and signaling a new level of escalation. The incident sent shockwaves through Estonia's political and military leadership. The escalation was seen as part of a worrying trend, with Russian actions growing bolder and more frequent, putting additional pressure on Estonia's security apparatus. Estonian officials quickly framed the incident as more than just a local dispute. They argued it was part of a broader pattern of Russian behavior meant to intimidate NATO's eastern flank and undermine the alliance's sense of security. Defense Minister Hanno Pevkur announced that Estonia would invoke NATO's Article 4, a rarely used but powerful mechanism that allows any member state to call for urgent consultations when it feels threatened. This move underscored the seriousness of the situation and Estonia's commitment to collective defense. Article 4 is a cornerstone of the NATO alliance, enabling members to come together and discuss threats to their security. By invoking it, Estonia signaled that the airspace violation was not just a bilateral issue, but a matter of concern for the entire alliance. By taking this decisive step, Estonia ensured that the incident would be addressed at the highest levels of NATO. The move transformed a regional provocation into an alliance-wide challenge, compelling all member states to consider their response. Now, the alliance faced a critical test of its credibility and unity. The world watched closely to see how NATO would respond to this latest act of aggression, knowing that its actions would set a precedent for future confrontations along its borders. NATO's response was immediate and coordinated. The alliance's air defense system detected the Russian jets and scrambled Italian F-35s, joined by Finnish and Swedish aircraft. Together, they intercepted and escorted the Russian fighters out of Estonian airspace. This multinational show of force sent a clear message: NATO's eastern flank is not undefended. Secretary-General Mark Rutte praised the pilots' professionalism and the seamless cooperation between allied forces. The incident underscored NATO's readiness to defend its members at a moment's notice. Following Estonia's request, the North Atlantic Council scheduled emergency consultations. Allies would now assess the threat and coordinate a unified response. The alliance's resolve was being tested, and so far it was holding firm. The Estonian incursion was just one in a growing series of Russian provocations along NATO's borders, highlighting a pattern that has become increasingly difficult for the alliance to ignore. These incidents are not random or isolated. They are part of a deliberate strategy. Earlier that same month, Russian drones brazenly crossed into Polish airspace, forcing NATO jets to scramble and, in some cases, shoot the drones down. These tense moments played out over Polish skies, raising alarm not just in Warsaw, but across the alliance. On the very same day as the Estonian incident, Russian fighter jets buzzed dangerously close to a Polish oil platform in the Baltic Sea. Such maneuvers are risky, sending a clear message of intimidation and disregard for international norms. Romania, too, has faced repeated airspace violations. In one recent case, a Russian drone crossed into Romanian territory, prompting the Romanian Air Force to scramble F-16s in a rapid response. These incidents are becoming more frequent, keeping local militaries on edge. Taken together, these actions form a clear and troubling pattern. Russia is systematically testing NATO's defenses, probing for weaknesses, and attempting to normalize its aggressive military presence along the alliance's borders. Each incursion is a calculated move. Military analysts refer to this as gray zone activity, hostile acts that remain just below the threshold of open conflict. These tactics are designed to create confusion, sow uncertainty, and avoid triggering a full-scale military response, while still exerting pressure. The ultimate goal is to destabilize, divide, and keep NATO on constant alert. By forcing the alliance to respond to repeated provocations, Russia hopes to stretch NATO's resources and test the unity of its member states. Each incident, no matter how small, puts additional strain on alliance resources and political unity. The risk of escalation grows with every violation, making it clear that these are not isolated events, but part of a broader, ongoing challenge to NATO's stability. As expected, Russia denied any wrongdoing. The Defense Ministry claimed its jets never entered Estonian airspace, insisting they flew over neutral Baltic waters. Moscow provided technical details to cast doubt and shift the debate to flight paths and coordinates. This pattern of denial is standard. Russia routinely rejects responsibility, blames NATO, and fuels confusion. The aim: avoid accountability, project defiance, and muddy the international response. The world reacted with swift condemnation. EU diplomat Kaja Kallas called the incursion an extremely dangerous provocation, urging a strong response. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen proposed new sanctions targeting Russia's military aviation sector. UK and Ukrainian leaders voiced solidarity with Estonia, framing the incident as part of Russia's broader campaign against Europe. In the US, President Trump called the situation big trouble, while Estonia's ambassador warned that Russia was testing NATO's resolve. The consensus: Russia's actions threatened not just Estonia, but the security of the entire alliance. The pressure for a united, forceful response was mounting. Invoking Article 4, Estonia brought the issue to NATO's highest political level. Article 4 triggers emergency consultations, not military action, but it's a powerful show of alliance solidarity. Allies share intelligence, assess the threat, and coordinate their response. Past invocations have led to increased NATO presence and readiness in vulnerable regions. Estonia's move signaled it saw the incursion as a genuine threat, not a minor incident. The consultations could lead to joint diplomatic actions or enhanced military measures. The process itself reinforced the message: a threat to one is a concern for all. Russia's repeated airspace violations are calculated tests of NATO's limits. Each incursion gathers intelligence on alliance response times and unity. The strategy is psychological as much as military, keeping NATO reactive, consuming resources, and probing for divisions. Moscow hopes to create crisis fatigue, making the West less responsive over time. These provocations also serve as distractions from Russia's struggles in Ukraine, shifting global attention. By challenging NATO, Russia projects strength at home and abroad. But it's a dangerous gamble. A single miscalculation could trigger direct conflict. Both sides know the risks, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Incidents like the Estonian airspace violation are stark reminders of Europe's fragile peace. Each breach raises the risk of miscalculation and escalation between nuclear-armed powers. NATO's unity is the best deterrent against further aggression. For frontline states, these provocations are not abstract. They're real threats to daily life and national security. Maintaining credible defense and alliance solidarity reassures citizens and deters adversaries. The ultimate goal: prevent wider conflict through vigilance, strength, and communication. The Estonian incident is a warning. Peace requires constant effort and unity. The balance is delicate, and the consequences of failure would be felt worldwide.